By 2018, you're roughly 3 years into your career?
Yeah, 3 years.
I'd say All In at that point, being what it was at the time, just looking at the time, it's the biggest show of your career till that point?
Absolutely. By about 9,000 people. I think there were 10,000. So yeah.
How does this all come together for you?
So I was doing some Ring of Honor shows at the time, and I was seeing the Bucks and Cody specifically every other weekend, and they wouldn't really say for sure. They just kept saying like, "Did you sign with NXT? Don't sign. Just don't sign." They wouldn't say why, and they said, there's something cooking." And then just like everyone else, I would see the rumors on social media. I didn't know Tony yet, but I would just see the rumors that All Elite Wrestling, this new thing was happening. Jim Ross might have involvement. And then eventually I got the phone call from Cody and Brandy saying that they wanted to offer me a position in All Elite Wrestling. And the first thing I asked was, well, can I still be a dentist? Because that was always the thing I dreaded when I graduated dental school in 2018, was when I was going to have to choose one or the other, because I knew it was going to happen. Everyone would always ask me, what are you going to do when you have to pick one career? And I would say, I'm not ever going to pick one. But deep down, I had no idea how the hell I was going to pull that off. And then Tony Khan came along, and it was a no-brainer for me because, like you said, I always wanted to be a part of WWE. But then when the opportunity came to be a part of something new and to like be part of the history books, like that was really exciting for me. It was a risk. It was a huge risk because we didn't know what was going to happen or what that meant for, what if this really sinks and then WWE will never talk to us again. But it was like, it just felt right. And the second I met Tony Khan, which was literally at the press conference, I'm getting ready to go out to.
Wait, the first night you met Tony was actually at the launch?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. And I was ready to go out, and he's standing there, and he said, "Hey, Britt, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. I'm Tony Khan." Like, so casual.
I was, to be honest, like a lot of the Ring of Honor people, I didn't own Ring of Honor at the time like I do now, so I was keeping a distance from them to avoid litigation from a company that I later purchased from them. So I was like pretty strategic about it, and those guys were there, and
he was so nice, and I could not have been any more nervous. I never told this story, but on my way driving from Orlando to Jacksonville, I stopped at a Starbucks and threw up because I was so nervous. Because I'm the first female signed of this big company. I felt like a little out of place at the time because I didn't feel like I accomplished enough in my career for such a big spot, such a big opportunity, but. I don't know. I think it was all meant to be. I think I'm where I was supposed to be, and everything happens for a reason.
I thought you were this perfect babyface, and then you develop into this really ruthless villain. Is that the way you envisioned it? Because on paper, I'm not sure it would have read that way.
That had a lot to do with this guy standing right here.
And it was Kenny said, it was all the time in wrestling, different people say different things and ideas come from all kinds of different places and then people work together on it. But the first person, Kenny said, I think Britt could do really well as a heel. And then, from there I took off and ended up getting to do a lot of fun stuff with you along the way. And, especially I think thinking back on it, it was all different people, but like Kenny, Chris Jericho, Cody, and I think me, I wrote a lot of it, and like with you, and like we had a good time. Like
it was really stressful at first because I wanted to do anything, and when Kenny talked about being a heel, I said absolutely, I'd love to, but I've never been a heel my entire career of 3 years, which obviously isn't that long. But I told him I'm going to need a lot of help with this, and that's what everyone he just said.
So not only do you have all that great help, but I would like to point out that it was actually on Chris Jericho's cruise where you began a relationship that I tried to pair you up, and I really take a lot of pride in pairing up people that I think would have a lot of chemistry together. And the relationship between Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone began on the Jericho cruise. And I thought with Britt turning heel, like I had a bunch of ideas for it. And one thing I thought would be really cool, to your point, with all the people, is on Chris's cruise. And we mentioned Kenny, who had this great idea, and Cody and Jericho also had great ideas for things we did along the way. But you can't talk about Dr. Britt Baker without talking about Tony Schiavone. And that started, I had said that if there was ever a group of fans that you could really get some heat talking about how Tony Schiavone was working at Starbucks and try to make it sound like there was anything wrong with that. Like, and I said that, I was like, not only will this group of people know when you reference Starbucks as an insult that like Tony Schiavone worked at a Starbucks, but people are going to hate you for it because not only is it a really terrible thing to say, like it makes you sound like a really snooty, terrible person as a heel, that you would look down on somebody for a great occupation like being a barista, But like, in addition to that, like these people actually will understand that Tony really was a barista because most of those fans knew that. It was a hardcore group of fans.
It never would have worked without them. I mean, we would get together and I like the text, like books and paragraph and text messages of ideas and our notebooks. And we had some great ideas, we had some bad ones, and we all worked together. And at the time, that was one of the best acts in all Elite Wrestling, or maybe in all of wrestling.
I think that's like a good example because so many of the great things in wrestling come from like one person says something and then it's like, okay, that's a great idea, and then what can we do to work on that, and then different people say ideas, and it's just trying to filter out the stuff that works and is the best stuff, and that's like how a lot of the best wrestling honestly gets done. And but the cool part about that was like Britt tapped into herself. It wasn't like she was trying to be anything